A green tip bullet.
It's a 62 grain bullet that they call it armor piercing.
Owner of Carter's Shooting and Hunting Supply, Christy Manning, says it's mostly used for sport. It goes in an AR-15 like this. But now the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms is trying to take the green tip bullets off the shelves permanently.
The bullet is actually more than 25% of the bullet weight itself, the ammo weight itself. It's a heavier bullet, so it says it penetrates more.
The ATF says the ammunition can pierce through a bulletproof vest, putting police officers in danger.
Well, it is the bullet ban that has Republicans in the House of Representatives and other Second Amendment advocates up in arms. The ATF, as you heard, wants to ban that very popular type of ammo because the bullets can supposedly pierce bulletproof vests. It's a pleasure to welcome into MidPoint a former police officer and former political director for the National Rifle Association. Right now, he's the president of the Independent Firearm Owners Association, Richard Feldman. Richard, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
So there's a lot of controversy about this, and if the Obama administration's stated goal is to make the streets safer, they might be failing from the onset here, because any time they try to take some sort of aggressive action when it comes to firearm or bullet control in this case, sales of said firearms or bullets skyrocket.
Well, that's true. When gun owners fear that there's going to be limitations, they go out like anyone else and go on a buying frenzy.
And now, Congressman Bob Goodlatte and 238 of his colleagues, they've written a letter to the ATF, and they are saying that there is no proof that these bullets are used more than other bullets to target police or injure police. So why is this administration trying to do this?
Well, this administration doesn't like guns, and anything they can do to gun owners, they seem perfectly willing to accept and push. It's politics as usual on the Obama administration part. When it comes to rifle calibers, anyone that's got a little knowledge about firearms knows that any rifle caliber is capable of penetrating soft body armor. That's really not the issue. When we go back 30 years ago to when this really came to the fore, it was about banning bullets that were specifically designed to penetrate vests fired from handguns. Which the National Rifle Association, I was there at the time, we supported that legislation. And it's interesting to note that in the 30 years since the legislation passed, there's not been a single police officer in this country shot at, let alone injured, let alone killed with an armor-piercing round. So the Obama administration and ATF is going to focus the attention of our country when we have all sorts of very serious issues facing this republic on a non-existent problem because it's good politics for the administration and their supporters.
Well, as I'm sure you would agree, one police officer would be too many in this situation, and the argument would be then that this administration is trying to be proactive.
Well, if they really want to be proactive, perhaps they'd like to ban all ammunition, because if ammunition didn't exist, you could have all the guns you wanted and not be concerned about being fired. That's not the issue. That's not the problem. Once again, the problem is not, in this case, the ammo or ever the gun. It's always in whose hands are the guns and the ammo and what their intent is in using or misusing those guns.
And so what is the ATF using here for their evidence as the rationale behind this push?
Well, what's allowed them to weigh into this issue was the development of the AR-15 platform as a handgun. Otherwise, it was all a rifle, but with a handgun platform really developed largely for disabled individuals. It allows them to say, well, now it's capable of being fired in a handgun. Mind you, this handgun's 2 feet long, kind of hard to conceal. It's very rare in criminal misuse of guns to find a rifle or a shotgun used. It's mainly handguns. That's the issue. I mean, people don't walk around with rifles shooting cops. When they do, they're using handguns. So it's another non-existent issue, and perhaps it takes some attention away from Obama's other concerns and problems.
So is that really your best take here? This is a straw man argument. The administration is holding up something to give folks something to talk about?
Well, we're talking about it instead of talking about other issues facing our country from ISIS. If it can change the discussion, look, Clinton was very good at this. Anytime there was a problem with Clinton, he brought up guns. Another bimbo alert, bring up the gun issue. Works like a charm.
All right, well, we'll see if that's the reason here. We're going to talk a little bit more about this. When we return, the constant race between bullets and bulletproof vests. We'll talk about that aspect of the story. Who is winning when it comes to officer safety? All that and more when MidPoint returns right after this break. Welcome back. We're rejoined now by the president of the Independent Firearm Owners Association, Richard Feldman. Richard, we were talking a little bit about officer safety, and I want to read a quote here that was in the Washington Examiner from James Pascoe. He's the executive director of the Fraternal Order of Police's National Legislative Office, I should say. Any ammunition is of concern to police in the wrong hands, but this specific round has historically not posed a threat to law enforcement. We talked about how some police officers might say there's an arms race on the street, but here you have the Fraternal Order of Police's a member of their leadership saying this specific ammo doesn't pose a threat.
Well, I've been around long enough to know Jim Pascoe in a different life, and Jim Pascoe's the former head of congressional affairs at the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. And 20, 30 years ago when he was there, he might have been in favor of it prospectively, but, you know, he recognizes on behalf of Fraternal Order of Police, police are very rarely confronted with people using rifles. It's an anomaly. It almost doesn't happen. And when it does, any rifle caliber bullet is capable of penetrating the soft body armor that police officers wear. Now, if we're talking about flak jackets in the military, that's a little different story, but we're not. We're talking about police officers. So whether you use this particular green-tipped ammo or any other .223 caliber or .308 or .30-30 or .350 Win Mag or any rifle caliber, it will all penetrate vests.
But you and I both know, Richard, that if there are cops working today who would tell you that there is an arms race right now between criminals on the street and police departments across this country.
Well, because a police officer says it, that doesn't make it true. That's kind of the echo chamber of we're discussing it, and we know from the statistics that crime rates are substantially down. Far less police are killed annually or shot at now than 20 years ago. So does that mean that the arms race is getting bigger or smaller? It's not about an arms race. It's about specific individuals that are misusing guns. If we spent half the time in this country focusing on the problem instead of the political issue du jour, we'd be going a lot further in solving the problem instead of discussing the atmospherics surrounding those problems.
And what to you is the main problem?
Well, the main problem is not any different today than it was 30 or 40 years ago. We have a failed criminal justice system. We have a failed mental health system. Over the last 2 years, certainly all your viewers are painfully aware of deranged individuals getting guns. It's a very difficult situation to deal with. I'm not suggesting there are easy answers. In fact, the far easier thing is to deal with criminals. How do criminals get guns? They don't walk into gun shops because they're not going to pass Brady background checks. Oddly enough, they steal them. There are 500,000 to 600,000 stolen firearms in this country every year. I don't know about you, but I failed in the last 10 years to hear one elected official ask me, gee, Richard, what can we do about criminals stealing those guns and cut down on it? I've got some answers that will work, but no one's interested in talking about it because those are real problems with some solutions. Yeah,
there are real problems there. You mentioned a number of them, and oftentimes these mass shooting incidents we talk about get so much of the media attention. When you look at the overall impact of gun violence, they are, you know, a lot different than the day in, day out gun violence that these police officers see. You also mentioned the mental health aspect of all this. Do you think that would be really the best place to start if this country was going to get serious about dealing with gun violence? Maybe they should start with the mental health aspect of this.
You know, I'm an old-fashioned kind of guy. I think that it makes a lot more sense to start with the lowest hanging fruit, and that's back to basics, firearm safety. That's the one that we know works. We could do far more of, but it's become politicized. We can talk about drug education in our schools, sex education in our schools, but God forbid we talk about firearm safety education in our schools. That's easy to achieve, some safety, if we believe in education at all, but we don't do that. When it comes to the criminal misuse of firearms, there's lots of things we can do.
Well, I'm going to have to cut you off, Richard. I'm sorry, because we're up against the hard break. We only have 20 seconds left. We'd love to have you back, though. But interesting, some points you raised there, certainly worth talking about in this green bullet ban. We'll see what happens from here.
Thanks,
Richard Feldman, thank you so much. We're back with more here on MidPoint right after this short commercial break.